We hope you enjoyed that video. Again, you can visit that at youtube.com, and it's Cooking with OSBI. So I'm really excited to be here tonight at our new Scottsdale campus, which just opened in February of 2020. And we've got some great participation now, and we're looking forward to growing the program in the East Valley in future years. Tonight's event is to help Us Glow annual appeal event, to shine our light on abilities and opportunities and inclusion. And we're really proud to have incredible support from one of our OSBI board members, who is actually one of our first employees in the culinary department back in 2005, 2006. His name is Chris Curtis. He's with North Italia. Let's everybody welcome Chef Chris.
Thanks.
Great to be here. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
This is going to be a great night.
I'm so excited.
And it's been a long time making,
Yeah.
but hopefully people have taken your advice and got some really cool ingredients to cook along with you at home.
I hope so. And, you know, thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight for our first, hopefully, annual virtual cooking class.
What about quarterly? Can we do it quarterly?
We can do it quarterly. That's
or
fine too.
semi-annual.
Whatever,
we'll do it again. Right.
Whatever the people want. I'm more than willing and more than ready to do so.
Cool. We appreciate
that. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Well, everyone, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I can't thank you enough. I wish that this was a more intimate version of tonight, but nonetheless, I appreciate you. I appreciate you supporting One Step Beyond. One Step Beyond is so near and dear to my heart, and I am so humbled to be here sharing my passion, a little bit of my knowledge with you, and tonight's going to be a really special night. What I'd like to do before we get started is introduce a really special person, someone that has played an incredible role in my life, professionally and personally. He has been a mentor of mine since I was 20 years old, and helped me find my passion in cooking. Helped me secure my first job in San Francisco as a young prep cook, and put me on the path of being a culinary professional now for going on 20 plus years. And on top of that, kind of the icing on the cake was he introduced me to One Step Beyond in Arizona back in 2005 when we were cooking on Joe and Mimi's patio. I distinctly remember making paella in this pan that was ginormous on their back patio, and it's really been a special experience being able to kind of be a part of One Step Beyond and to kind of help with their culinary program. But their culinary program is amazing, and if you don't know about it, please take some time to educate yourself, contribute. All of our participants are so blessed to have all these programs available to them. But without further ado, Jim Rio. Yep. All right, Jim. So we're gonna start with the Negroni. And fun fact, Jim's never had a Negroni before. So we're gonna go ahead.
Half Italian too.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna break the seal on that. What I love about some cocktails is kind of the tradition and history behind them. And the Negroni just celebrated. Jim told me its 100th anniversary
Last year.
Yeah. And why don't you talk about some of the history behind it, and then we'll go into the ingredients.
well, there was a Corporal Negroni. His first name, what was the first name?
Camillo.
Camillo. And Camillo had gone back to the United States, fell in love with the cowboy theme and so forth. When he got back to Italy, he went into one of his favorite establishments, and in Italy they call it Americano, was the name of it, and it was made with the Campari, the vermouth, and soda water. And so he said, I need something stronger. And so so that's where the gin came in. And such was born the Negroni we know today.
Yep. And another thing that I love about this cocktail, aside from the tradition and the flavor profile, is how easy it is. It is literally 1 part Campari, 1 part vermouth, and 1 part gin. Now, the Campari is like one of the prerequisites for this cocktail. The vermouth, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. I prefer Antica. This is what we serve at North Italia, the restaurant group that I am fortunate enough to be a part of. And then Hendrix is just a personal favorite of mine in regards to gin. So in the recipe that we sent out, it's 1 ounce gin, 1 ounce Campari, the Carpano Antica, 1 ounce Campari, and then a dash of orange bitters. Unfortunately, I forgot the orange bitters, but a little hack that I'll show you for those of you at home that don't have the orange bitters or just need to have a little something, but full transparency, I forgot. We're just going to put a little bit of the orange zest, the peel, in with the glass while we're stirring it. And then we're going to garnish with an additional little bit of orange peel as well. So I like to use my vegetable peeler to remove the zest, and it comes off just perfect without any of the white pith. Sometimes if you use a knife to cut off the zest of the orange that carries all the essential oils and really bright, beautiful flavors of the orange, it can get a little bitter. So just be mindful of that. If you do not have a vegetable peeler and you're using a knife, you can cut it off and then just very carefully remove some of that white pith. So we'll just put a couple little slices in here real quick. While we're doing it, we'll put it in the glass too for the garnish. Jim, are you excited about your first Negroni here, or what do you think?
It's the right time of year, and
yeah. So what I like about Negronis is that it's a great aperitif. So it's a great way to start your meal. It is not a sweet cocktail. I think it's really balanced. There's a little bit of bitterness from the Campari, which is classified as a bitter. But then the vermouth and the gin kind of balance it out. And what's beautiful about gin is that there's a lot of herbaceous, floral components that really, I think, balance out the bitterness of the Campari, as does the vermouth. How would you classify the first time Jim tried this vermouth for the first time?
This vermouth is outstanding, and it's worth shopping to get a really quality vermouth. A lot of people think of it, as a martini mix, but quality of ingredients, just like in food, is important. So
it's paramount. So here's the thing with the tradition and the history of this drink. So it's very important that this is stirred 30 times. Okay. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25.
This is part of the
29, 30. Yep, exactly 30 times. I might have missed a couple, but who cares? All right.
So if you have a few of these Negronis after a while, is it hard to keep track of that count?
I mean, it might turn into 50. Who cares?
Okay.
All right. But you just want to make sure it's cold. And also, too, we don't shake it. We stir it. Okay. And then now we're just going to strain it over our ice. I love the color of this cocktail. And it's, I think, very seasonally appropriate as well. For not being a bar guy, I think that was a pretty even split.
Well, here goes, folks.
Yeah, salute. And salute to you, all those out there. Cheers. Happy holidays. Again, thank you so much for joining us.
And if you have a question after each segment, you can.
Yeah. And if Jim spits this out on camera.
No, I won't. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It's known for its the bitterness, but the sugar and the orange really adds a nice soft edge to it. So
I think so too. And it just
really
like
good.
the aroma from the orange zest really is beautiful. The orange bitters in there, for those of you that are following the recipe and didn't miss something like I did, I'm sure it tastes exceptional as well.
The color they describe as carmine.
Yeah.
Which is perfect.
I think so.
Since that was his name, Carmelo, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's something to that whole connection.
All right.
Cheers.
Salute.
So can we,
All right, we're gonna do a chef's board.
okay, I thought we could say something between segments.
Something that is pretty ubiquitous now in restaurants, but it's one of our signature items at North Italia. I think it's a great opportunity for us to talk about, you know, how we met, how your business first started when we first met, while I'm kind of gathering some ingredients and getting stuff ready.
So Chris was one of my first employees at a delicatessen I owned in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so charcuterie boards weren't even known at that point. Oh, we have a question coming in. And the question, we don't know who it's from, but they're asking vermouth dry or sweet?
So I would classify this Antica as kind of in between. It's not an overly sweet vermouth, but also too, it's not a dry vermouth. And I think that's, you know, one of the reasons why we chose this vermouth is that it's a very traditional Italian vermouth, and it falls in between those lines of not too sweet and not too dry. It really brings a level of balance to this cocktail, and that's a phenomenal question. Thank you so much for that. And then I'll bring this label up close to the camera so you all can see this. It's a really beautiful label. Traditionally, sorry, DJ. Okay. So traditionally, these bottles were hand-blown glass bottles, and the shape has maintained the same, but obviously now they don't blow them by hand.
So we have a question, is if it's mixed with whiskey, is it a Belvedere?
Well, that's a question that goes right over my head. I'm not a mixologist. I'm not a bartender, to say the least. Typically, the cocktails.
I believe it is.
Okay.
Since I was doing some research on it today, and
well, then
there are several names if you Google it. When you sub the gin for different liqueurs, it takes on different names. So that's how that plays out. So, well, great question.
Touche. And that's from Maddie.
Yep.
Why are you throwing curveballs, Maddie?
My apologies. I can't.
Well, anyway, that's phenomenal questions, and I hope that the answer to the dry or sweet answered it. And then in regards to the Belvedere, that again is outside of my scope. But you nailed it. All right,
back to charcuterie.
Let's do this. So, Jim, you're going to talk about how we met, and I'm going to cut some bread, and then we'll talk about how we toast it for the chef's board.
All right. So we were doing, Chris was one of my first employees at our delicatessen in the Bay Area. I think where he really caught his bug for the industry was some winemaker events that we did. You know, running a delicatessen, the ingredients that you have on a charcuterie board are things that a good delicatessen in your neighborhood's going to have. So today we've got things like Castelvetrano olives. There are literally hundreds of different olives. Cheeses. So olives are a key item. Do you want to go through like this? Cheeses?
Yeah, for sure.
So Marcona almonds from Spain, a classic tapas ingredient. I'm sure you've seen that on your boards if you've gone out to eat. And this is a fig mostarda. Mostarda basically is just like it's a fig jam with a whole grain mustard blended to it. And then another item we've got tonight are piquillo peppers. Piquillo peppers are basically, they're the pimento. So everyone has paprika at home, and basically paprika is made out of this pepper. So the piquillos are great on this board. They're also You can buy them where they're in whole forms, so you can stuff them with different things, chorizo and sausage and cheese to balance that out. These have been grilled. I don't know if you can pick up the grill marks on these. So, but a charcuterie board is just, it's an assortment of things. So Chris, when he worked at the deli, we put together trays and things like that. So charcuterie boards are just an individualized format for you to do that. And
I think, you know, charcuterie boards or chef boards are just a great way to, you know, present something that's very, can be very interactional with your guests, and create a lot of different like amazing bites and textures. But I want to jump to the bread real quick. So at the restaurant, we brush the bread with olive oil and then we grill it and it gets toasty and charred. But at home, my favorite way to toast bread is with a healthy amount of olive oil. It's very luxurious and probably not the most economical way to use really nice fine olive oil, but the flavor and the texture of this particular preparation is really special. So in the pan, I've got about a 10-inch saute pan here, and there's probably about 1/8 of an inch of oil in the pan. So quite a bit. And I've got some ciabatta bread that is made from our local bakery. This is a proprietary bread that we use that's naturally leavened with organic ingredients and all the delicious things. But any bread that you have will be elevated substantially by preparing it this way. So we're just going to add it to the pan over like medium heat. The bread is sizzling just a little bit. I'm going to turn the temperature up a little bit. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and start spreading out our ingredients. So you can use any, you know, vessel or platform you have. We have these beautiful wooden boards that we use at the restaurant. But if you have like a large platter or anything, that'll be quite fine as well. The two meats that I chose today, we have a spicy copa that's sliced very thin. And then also too, some prosciutto di Parma that's been aged for 24 months. What I love about chef's boards is that, again, it's like a great conversation piece when you're first, you know, have your guests over before the actual sit down, you know, formal part of the meal, or if it's just like inviting some friends or just sharing a bottle of wine with family members, especially now when you know, nobody's really entertaining except for people within their close circle. This is a great way to kind of elevate your game a little bit. And all these things, all these ingredients can be pretty readily had. Perfect. Any questions? Yep. No. Perfect. Jim, tell me about how you transitioned from your corporate career to your culinary career.
Well, my background, I actually, out of college, spent the first 12 years in the food distribution industry. And in my early 30s, my wife and I were living in the Bay Area, and I just, my family had been are in the pizza business in a couple of different states. I didn't want to get into that, but I knew I wanted to be closer to food. Oh, we have a question. Question, Chef, will the peppers stain the board?
Will they stay on the board?
Stain.
No, they will not. They will not. That's a good question. So in between uses with any, you know, wooden, whether it's a serving piece or a wooden cutting board, after I clean them, I always rub them down with like a natural, you know, a booze block. Conditioning oil is phenomenal for wood. But you know, this is literally one of the boards from one of our restaurants where they get used and abused. And, you know, the peppers go on these boards every night. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's not any staining whatsoever. So it's a great investment to have for your home when you're entertaining. So with the chef's board, there's no particular order or, anything that needs to be, meticulous or formatted. I just don't like to overlap the ingredients. I like to kind of place them next to each other so that people aren't having to kind of like scavenge or dive into
Chef,
it.
we're getting some sophisticated questions here.
Yeah.
So we're doing the bread in the olive oil. Questions come up. Should they use an oil with a higher smoke point?
No,
I think I know your answer to this.
Yeah. So I love to use extra virgin olive oil for this and keep it at a fairly low temperature so you're not reaching that smoke point and totally destroying the integrity of the actual olive oil itself. I know it's kind of hard to tell with this format right now, but the pan is barely kind of simmering, like the bread is barely simmering in the oil. I've got an induction burner here and it's at 320 degrees. So it's not at a very high temperature, it's at a very low control temperature. And we're trying to take our time so that we develop a really uniform golden brown crust on the bread, but maintaining a very soft, moist interior. And that's a phenomenal question. So the cheese that we chose we have two different cheeses. We have aged pecorino, in Italian, it's stagionato, which means aged. And then also another cheese that I love and that I think that is very popular with a lot of people is burrata. And burrata, if you've never had it, is amazing. So it's a very thin layer of mozzarella that's stretched on the outside, and then it's filled with stracciatella, which is essentially the cheese curds and a little bit of cream on the inside, and then it's wrapped up like a little purse, and it's really special. So I've got this here, and whenever we present the burrata, I like to cut it open a little bit so you can see the stracciatella inside. And I'll bring this up close so everybody can see it. And then with the burrata, because it's it's a very mild cheese, I always like to season it. And so I'll drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil over the top, a little bit of salt. I prefer kosher salt for general seasoning purposes, but also Malden salt, like a crunchy, flaky sea salt is phenomenal for this purpose. And then a little bit of fresh black pepper. Can I bring this up to the camera? Okay. Does that read? All right, great. All right, so the bread's about ready. Oh, it's so beautiful. Okay, so as soon as it comes out of the pan, I'm going to season it with just a little bit of salt, crack a little bit of pepper over it, and then just going to cut it into thirds here. And then allow it to cool. And I'll bring this up to the camera as well so we can kind of see what we're working with here. But just like beautiful golden brown, very crunchy exterior, soft and pillowy inside. The bread is cut about 1 inch thick. This is a great way to prepare bread for a charcuterie board, or if you want to do a garlic bread situation, you would just, once it comes out of the oil, grate a little bit of rub some garlic cloves over the top and then some Parmesan cheese. And that's a very classic way to do some garlic bread.
So it's kind of like really the classic, like a French crouton.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
In large form.
In large format.
Jeff just notified me that we may hear him calling out from the side when there's a question to catch our attention. So.
Yep. I'm going to pass this over to our team over here so that they can enjoy this.
Thanks, Chris.
Heck yeah.
That might slow the questions coming over them.
That's all right. So now we're going to open it up to some questions. And before we get ready to transition into the next part of our menu, we would love to hear from you guys. Any and all questions. There's no dumb questions. And it's up to you. And I'll take a Negroni break.
Cheers.
Salute. I'm gonna get cleaned up a little bit while we wait for some questions to start rolling in. But I hope that everybody is staying safe, staying happy and positive. This has been a very stressful year to say the least, but at the same time, there's been plenty of reasons to be grateful and positive. What makes charcuterie great for entertaining during the holidays? Well, what I like about it is that it's not something that's like individually served. It's not just like, you know, when you have guests come over and here's like one individual portion, here's like a salad that I want you to enjoy. This is something that we're sharing at a table, something that's very interactional and that we're, you know, something that's very tactile and that we're, you know, sharing this and talking about it. And
It's also cured. So like, you know, it's something that you can put out and it can hold if you have, you know,
it's a great
lot
point.
of things are, you know, a lot of things you put out, our temperature can be, you know, challenged, where charcuterie, I think for its original format, reason it was created was for its stability that way. So, but, and we kind of given charcuterie like this big name, you know, in essence, it's the art of cured meat in many forms.
Yep. And
so
yeah, and you know, the history and the purpose behind charcuterie was for these families that were, you know, living in Europe, raising their own animals, and then, you know, slaughtering their animals for meat and for sustenance, and for them to provide, you know, meals for their family, was for them to get 100% utilization out of the entire animal for the entire year. So they would raise these animals, and once the animals had been, you know, processed or killed, for lack of a better term, by curing them and preserving the different parts of the animals, especially, you know, some of the less desirable parts, it provided a year-long or sometimes 2-year-long ability to tap into those resources. So there's a tremendous amount of history behind it, and like sound logic behind it as well. So I love that tradition has been carried on and still is respected to this day.
And just, you know, in terms of for the holidays, there's just so many varieties out there, and it's, you know, people like variety today. So these boards really give you a lot of options to create.
Yep. And there's ways to do, you know, vegetarian charcuterie boards.
Chef, we got a quick question. They're asking, where would you recommend getting quality cheese in either Arizona or California?
Okay, great question. So I'll speak to Arizona first. Depending upon, you know, the area that you live in, if there's, you know, I found some of these cheeses at AJ's today. Also too, there can be some great cheeses if you look a little bit closer at, like, you know, Fry's, or if you want to go a step above, you can go to Whole Foods. And in California, I mean, there's a whole slew of, you know, local cheese shops, but there's a great resource called Murray's Cheeses. It's an online cheese shop that you can access, and they do a phenomenal job as well. Chicago? Well, yeah.
I've moved to, oh. that question, okay. Well, Melinda, I believe you live in Chicago, so you can fire out any recommendations you like. I've moved away from there back in 1982.
Yeah, so it's been a minute.
All right,
Yeah.
there we go. And a quick question came in on the charcuterie boards about why not use dried fruit? And
Yeah,
There's-
why? I mean,
you
why not?
can.
You know,
Absolutely.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some dried apricots on there, some dried figs, some dried cranberries. All those things are
the
perfectly.
fig jam we used and the mostarda was actually out of dried figs. So
Yeah. So the mostarda is just a very traditional Italian condiment for whether it's a charcuterie board like this, like a cured meat board, or whether it's like a roasted meat dish. The mostarda, again, was a way for them to preserve their fruit from the summer growth season, can it. They added a little bit of mustard oil to it, some mustard seeds, cooked it down, and then canned it and preserved it. So the mostarda, that's the kind of the cultural relevance of that with the Italian chef's board. But at home, and especially for my house, if I'm gonna, put together a simple charcuterie board like this with my wife, it's going to be dried apricots or dried figs or dried cherries, depending upon what's available. And that's a great way to add another beautiful component to the chef's board. And that's a great question. Any other questions? All right, great. All right, so now we're going to move on to preparing the main course. So we've got our beef tenderloin here, center cut. So this one has a little bit of a taper. This is not quite traditionally center cut because I cut the fillet in two. So we had, one for staging and one for execution. But ideally, in a perfect world, you want the center cut to where it's uniform from end to end so that it cooks evenly. Or if you have a household where, let's say my wife prefers it more like medium well, and I prefer it more, mid-rare, rare, then this is the perfect cut for us. Because as it roasts, this thinner end is going to cook faster and end up being the medium to medium well end. And then the thicker end will be medium, mid-rare to rare. So don't worry about that at your home. But if everybody in your household wants it mid-rare from end to end, then really, kind of be a little bit more specific in regards to the center cut aspect of the fillet. So Darla, correct? Our friend Darla, thank you so much for reaching out earlier and asking a phenomenal question if the beef should be left out for a while to temper. That's a great question. It really helps with it roasting evenly and roasting a little bit faster. Ideally, you want to let a piece of meat this size hang out for about an hour at room temperature before you go to roast it. So we appreciate that. So this has been tempered. We're going to go ahead and add the olive oil to this.
that room temp kind of helps that Maillard caramelization thing happen, right?
Absolutely. So typically with the filet, whether you clean it up and get it ready yourself, or whether you're getting it from a butcher shop, the filet will have some moisture on the outside. And by allowing it to come to room temperature and kind of drying out a little bit, just at room temp, it'll help it caramelize a little bit more on the outside. So I've added the olive oil to it. I'm just going to kind of gently just rub the olive oil all over the exterior of the filet. And then from there, we're going to season it. So whenever I season a protein, whether it's like a steak or a piece of fish or whatever it may be, I always want to raise my hand up high so that when I'm sprinkling the salt, it kind of falls and cascades in an even pattern all over the fillet. If I hold it really close and go like this, the salt doesn't hit the meat or the fish or the chicken or whatever it may be evenly. So I'll hold my hand up high. Oh, blocking the shot. Thank you. All right. So again, just holding my hand up high. And then with the black pepper, we're just going to really coat the exterior. Again, not holding it so close to the meat to where it just like falls in a very concentrated pattern, but kind of holding it up high. so that it really covers the entire surface area. Okay. So that's it. We've got our oven set to 450. This is a convection oven. So if you have a convection oven with a fan that circulates the heat around, I would think about lowering it down to 425. But if you have a standard oven, 450 is perfect. So we're going to put this in the oven.
So we're not going to put the coating on it yet.
No. So, and that's a great point. So we're going to pre-cook this filet until it reaches about 120 degrees with internal temperature. And so I highly recommend using a meat thermometer. And if you don't have a meat thermometer, then go by time. So we're going to cook it until it reaches 120 degrees internal temperature. And then we're going to pull it out of the oven, allow it to cool down or rest. And then once it's rested, then we'll put the Parmesan and herb coating over the top. And we'll go through that in a little minute.
What temp was the question asked? What was that temp again?
The oven?
Yeah. For this.
So 450 if it's a standard oven and 425 if it's convection.
Typically, a convection oven is going to kick up that temperature about 25 degrees.
So I'll set my timer for 10 minutes and then we'll check the temperature and we'll go from there. But if you don't have a meat thermometer or any sort of a device to check the internal temperature of whatever you're cooking, I highly recommend it, especially if you're cooking chicken or things like that, where we need to be really precise about how we're cooking poultry. A thermometer is a valuable piece of equipment. All right, so we're going to start the polenta next. So polenta is like the OG grits that a lot of Americans, especially in the South, are familiar with. Polenta is corn that's been dried and then stone ground traditionally. And polenta is something that is very traditional to the northern part of Italy and not so much the southern part. And that's solely because of the climate and the soil conditions of the northern part of Italy. I love both yellow and white polenta. We just happen to use white polenta quite a bit at North Italia. It has a little bit of a softer texture, a little bit creamier. The yellow polenta that I find is a little bit starchier and can become a little bit gummier. So if you're lucky enough to find white polenta, then use that. But again, there's nothing wrong with the yellow polenta.
Do grits work just as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Grits are going to be ground a little bit finer than polenta. So what that means is that they'll absorb the moisture a little bit faster and cook a little bit quicker. So when we make polenta, we're going to add our milk, our liquid first, and then bring that up to a simmer. So we've got our 4 cups
Chef,
of milk,
we got a question
1
about
cup of half and half.
What kind of pan we're using
For what?
for the meat?
Oh,
You can find these at.
yeah, so we just used a half sheet pan, but you guys can use like a Pyrex dish, whatever like roasting vessel you have that's completely oven safe. This is just a bulletproof piece of equipment that we fat side up. So with the filet, there's a little bit of like more fat on the part that's considered like the chain side, and that fat side goes down.
Another question came in about parchment paper.
Yep.
So actually in grocery stores now you can buy it by a roll that fits most home kitchens pans. But there's a store like Smart and Final. A lot of people don't realize you can go to restaurant supply stores that the restaurants go to, and they actually will sell products, a lot of these kinds of things to you on a cash and carry basis. So, so you could actually find, this fits a commercial size sheet pan. You can buy, and I like to buy this size and cut them in half for the pan at home.
Yep, for roasting. For the filet, I didn't roast it on parchment paper, especially at this temperature. Sometimes that paper can burn. And also too, like if I were going to make like a pan sauce or something with the filet, roasting it directly on the pan without any parchment paper will allow me to develop a sauce in the pan, but that's something that we can do in the next class. All right, so we're going to move on. We've got our liquid heating up here, the milk and the half and half heating up for the polenta. In the meantime, we're going to do the Brussels sprouts. So the Brussels sprouts come in with the stem end down at the bottom where they're attached to the stalk, and then the bulb end. So we're going to remove that part, just that bottom part of the stem, and just like gently cut that off, and then just split them right in half. Some of the exterior leaves can be a little bit thick and fibrous, especially if they're larger. These are all really beautiful, about quarter size Brussels sprouts, but they can get as big as, probably, 2-inch bulbs. And when you get those larger size guys, you want to peel off the exterior couple leaves. So I'm just going to go through. These have already been washed and dried, removing the bottom end, splitting them right in half. And once we get these split in half, we're going to put them in a mixing bowl.
This time of year, you can get them actually on the stalk.
Yep.
That's great.
Once these are all cleaned up, I'm going to put them in a bowl with a little bit of olive oil, some salt and pepper, and then we can, once they've been seasoned, we'll spread them out onto a sheet pan or any sort of roasting device that you have, whether, again, it's like a Pyrex dish, a sheet pan. You can actually also do it in a saute pan too.
Someone was asking, Chef, about the polenta. Could you substitute the milk for something else?
Yeah, if you want to use water,
Or
you can
chicken-
use
or
water.
chicken
You
stock
can
or
use
something
chicken
like
stock
that?
as well. Chicken stock works great. But the only thing with that, like if you want to keep it kind of like lactose free, then I would increase the amount of chicken stock because the butter and the cheese and all the things that we add at the end kind of help kind of release and loosen up some of the starches that are developed during the cooking process. So if you are gonna, if you're looking for a lactose-free version of the polenta, then I would bump up the ratio probably 6 to 1. So 1 part polenta to 6 parts liquid would be a good ratio to look at. So we got a little mixing bowl, got our Brussels sprouts. Olive oil. Add our salt. A little bit of pepper. And then we're just going to toss these to coat them evenly. So whenever I roast a vegetable, I like to preheat the pan that I'm going to roast them in. This is a really important step that helps them roast evenly, get some good caramelization. So while we're doing this, I'm going to put our pan in the oven. Our filet is smelling awesome in there. Our liquid's almost to the boiling point. While we're waiting for all those things to happen, let's talk about Cambozola. So the Cambozola addition to the polenta.
Quick interruption.
Oh, boy.
We're stuck on polenta.
Okay.
So how do you feel about the pre-made polenta, like in the roll that you buy in the store?
I mean, I don't judge anything, so it's fine. I mean, whatever you want to do, it doesn't, I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Follow the directions. A great way to, probably mimic the same results would be to follow the heating directions that the package describes for the store-bought, like pre-made polenta, and then add the Cambozola cheese to it if that's something that you want to do. What I love about the Cambozola cheese is that, it's kind of a mashup. So it takes the traditional Gorgonzola blue cheese of Italy and a Camembert or a Brie from France and melds them together. So you end up with this like really creamy, delicious Brie textured cheese with the slight nuance of blue cheese, like Gorgonzola flavor. I think that this is kind of like the gateway drug for people that aren't like into like blue cheese, but will appreciate both aspects of it. And also too, in this application with the polenta, it adds this just really, I think, kind of like hauntingly delicious nuance to the polenta that takes it from like grits to something
Should we
special.
tell them the fonduta connection?
Oh yeah, and then talk about the fonduta from Grand Cafe.
So actually, Chris and I cooked at the same restaurant. The restaurant, once he caught the bug and really wanted to move to San Francisco.
Well, you took it upon yourself to go in there and.
Well, but I hadn't been gone long enough. They still remembered kind of who I was, but the dish that they made was this. It was a polenta souffle with the Cambozola fonduta on the front. So it was a blend of this melted Cambozola with a reduction of a demi-glace. And when Chris was there, they were still serving that dish. And
I think that
the restaurant's closed now, but I think they were still
serving it up until they closed. But, well, I think what's amazing is that, so I worked for Jim and was, had a voracious appetite for knowledge, and he was so generous in sharing all of that. And finally, I think he got so fed up. He's like, listen, I'm going to get you a job in San Francisco so you can get the hell out of my hair.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
But no, that was.
But actually, the chef that he went to work for told me when I was starting out that, the key is when you have people that come to work for you, you're only going to have them for a short period of time, particularly ones that are talented. And that's just how the industry is. So it's tough to see the restaurant industry suffering in these times today. So hopefully everybody will continue to support those that make it and survive. And I know all of you probably have been, so.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you definitely want to preheat the pan. I think that what that'll do is that, it really aids in the caramelization of the vegetables. Sometimes what I've noticed with some of the cooks in our restaurants, if they don't take that step, they'll just end up with some vegetables that are cooked all the way through and haven't had a chance to caramelize and develop that awesome flavor. So it's a little, I think taking that extra step will net a much more delicious result. I'm gonna go ahead and check the temperature of the filet right now, and we'll see where we're at. So when I check the temperature of any like roasting meat, I'll check it in 3 different areas, especially if it's, kind of tapered down and like thinner on one side and thicker on another. So I'll start on the thinner end. And we're already at 106 degrees, so that's very rare. The middle is at 100. And then about 105 on the other end. So, we're doing really well. And again, this really speaks like, considering that this is a very kind of uneven, good catch, unevenly shaped filet, by allowing it to temper, it's really roasting a lot more evenly than it would be if it were just going in there cold. All right, so our milk and cream's up to a simmer here. We're gonna add in our polenta. We're just gonna add it in like kind of like a gentle stream and stir it in. If we dump it all in there at once, sometimes it'll seize up the liquid that we're cooking it in and become clumpy. So as long as your liquid is up to a simmer and we gently add in our polenta in a slow, steady stream, it'll be great.
Do you need to have salt in there like you do with pasta water or anything like that at this point?
So that'll be the next step. We're gonna add a little bit of salt.
More for flavor?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm gonna add 2 pinches. So now it's back up to a simmer. Now I'm gonna lower the heat just below a boil. We want it to be simmering at this point. And I don't have a lid for this particular pot, but little kitchen hack, we're just gonna put a mixing bowl on top and that'll be our lid. So we're gonna let this cook for about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll stir it to make sure it's not, settling on the bottom, and it'll end up scorching and it'll be a disaster. So as long as we check in on this every few minutes or so, it'll be great.
Chef, that's a great trick, that bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned that in the restaurant business.
Did you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't
Well,
think about that at home, but
I think fortunately most like pots and pans come with lids nowadays, but sometimes if you end up with one that doesn't have one, then the mixing bowl works great. And more often than not in a kitchen, the lids are the first thing that go missing in a kitchen, in a professional kitchen. All right, so our Brussels sprouts are roasting. We've got our filet in there. We've got our polenta working. So the next thing that we need to focus on is the Parmesan and herb crust. I'm not sure if everybody was a little weirded out about the anchovies in the recipe, but let me talk about that a little bit so we can kind of move past that and collectively embrace it.
I have a friend that was in that category, but I've been told not to name that person.
Okay, what is the
Otherwise,
name?
her spouse will be in big trouble.
What does that person's name rhyme with?
That's a tough question.
Okay, what's the first letter of the name?
M.
M.
Okay,
So
that's all I can tell
is
you.
it Marley, Marjorie?
We're not
Mary?
gonna, we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there.
Interesting. Well, I see you, and let me talk to you about that. So we have, I don't know if this particular person, this mystery M person, has ever had a Caesar salad. Do you think that this person's had the Caesar salad?
She definitely has.
Okay.
She definitely has.
Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but there's a grip of anchovies in your Caesar dressing. And that's kind of what makes Caesar dressing as amazing as it is the addition of anchovies. So little news flash, anchovies are delicious. If used in the appropriate proportions, unless you're a maniac and you just want to eat anchovies like whole, which again, I don't judge.
Which if you've ever been to Spain during anchovy season, it's a great way to, fall in love with anchovies. Even you anchovy haters.
Couldn't agree more.
Because
I'm going to check we will at the very end. Okay, so again, talking about, kind of temperatures and, connecting the dots between actual, temperatures and what we ask for in a restaurant. So, if you like your steak cooked medium rare, then you're looking for a steak that's cooked about 130 degrees internal temperature. And if you like your steak cooked medium, then you're probably looking for like 140 degrees, and then so on and so forth. Mid-well, 155, well done, like totally crazy, like 185, 200, or super turbo, like 250 degrees. But for a medium rare steak, we want to hit a final temperature of about 135 degrees.
this is a really tender piece of meat, so.
Yeah, we
you
don't
can't-
want to cook it super well done. And also too with the filet, like there's so little fat in this steak that once you like get it past like medium, it gets really dry and kind of almost chalky. So, and it's not a very, technically like bloody steak. It doesn't push off a lot of blood just because this muscle is so underutilized within the cow that I would try, eating it between medium rare and medium. No, it's good. So we're almost there. I'm gonna put it back in for a couple more minutes and then we'll temp it again. Our Brussels sprouts are looking amazing. They're getting a little bit of good caramelization on them. All right, so let's jump to the herb crust, the Parmesan crust. So we've got our breadcrumbs, 2 cups. We've got the much debated anchovies. And we'll
Those
talk.
are white anchovies.
Yeah, these are white
Is
anchovies.
there a good place to find those?
I found we can get these at Whole Foods,
Whole Foods.
and also Fry's has them too.
Okay.
We've got some the minced herbs, like minced nice and fine. We have our grated Parmesan. So with the minced garlic, I like to use a microplane, and that's what this tool is right here. If you have a garlic press, you can use that too. But I like to use this tool because it can be used for so many different things, for like grating cheese, grating ginger, grating garlic. I think the garlic press is just kind of a little too specific. I'd rather you have a tool that can be used for lots of things.
There's a quick question from Vince Wheel. Are we supposed to be whiskey or not?
As long as it's on a nice low temperature, we can kind of let it hang out and check on it every few minutes.
On a home stove, like a medium low? Or
Medium low heat at home. So you'll notice like after it's been kind of hanging out for a minute, everything will kind of settle to the bottom. But as long as you keep it on a nice low temperature, it won't scorch or burn. Now, if you're concerned about, monitoring the temperature on your stove, then I would probably kind of babysit a little bit. But one of the blessings with this induction burner that I'm working on right now is that I can set it to such a specific temperature that I'm really not worried about it. But I would recommend stirring it every couple minutes and just really paying attention. If it's like boiling rapidly, then that's a good indication that it's like needs to be turned down.
Particularly people that have like electric burners at home
Yeah.
where it's a thermostat that goes up and down. When it's on high. So, yep.
Yeah, but this is looking beautiful, and again, if the liquid's like boiling and spitting up and all that stuff, then I would just pull the pan from the heat and then stir it and allow it to cool down, adjust the temperature on your stove, and then return it. And if it continues to boil more, then lower the heat a little bit more.
You've already had.
No, I have not. So I do not add the cheese or the butter or anything until the very end, until the polenta is cooked perfectly and tender and the right consistency. Touch more. And the thought behind that is, especially when we're adding the grated Parmesan, whenever you add Parmesan to a dish, you always want to do it at the very last minute. Like once it's like essentially pulled off the heat right before serving it, because it can get gritty and kind of break a little bit. And especially the Cambozola, we really want to keep kind of the integrity of the flavor of that cheese as pure as possible, and adding it at the very end is the best way to do so. All right, so working through the Parmesan crust again, we're going to add a little bit more, the second clove of garlic. So we've got our breadcrumbs in there, we've got our herbs, the white anchovy, the garlic, the grated Parmesan, and all the herbs. Now we're going to add our olive oil.
What's the glue that kind of forms the crust on it?
So the cheese.
Okay.
Once that, kind of comes to temperature, it kind of binds everything. And then the olive oil helps kind of hydrate the breadcrumbs. But it's this, just kind of like magic event that happens when it hits temperature. the cheese and the breadcrumbs and the olive oil all kind of become cohesive. Now the crust won't stay on there like a perfect like shell when we go to cut it, and I'll show you later. Part of it will kind of crumble, and that's fine. You can just kind of spoon some of the crust that falls off over the top of the dish, and it just kind of helps deliver a great level of flavor. You know, fillets inherently don't have a lot of flavor on their own, and they're really kind of dependent upon other things.
Because they're so lean.
Yeah, they're just so lean, they don't have a lot of fat.
Chris, quick question from Melinda. She's asking, what texture should the want to be when you take it off?
I'll show you. So it's not going to be too thick or too loose. And I don't know how to really describe it properly other than showing you. Cream of wheat. I'm sorry, I've never had cream of wheat. So I don't know.
No.
And then your friend Darla would like to see consistency of what the crust looks like.
Oh.
Is it runny crust or thick crust?
Heck yeah.
I can bring that up.
Yeah, what I'm doing right now is just making sure that the microplaned garlic and the minced up anchovies are fully like kind of dispersed and broken up.
And working that olive oil through it.
Yep.
Yep.
And then what I'll do with my hand is just kind of grab it and see how much it's clumping together. And we'll do a close up of that in a second, but I'm gonna add a little bit more olive oil. And, you know, I would recommend making this herb crust the night before. And then right before, like, you know, the same time that you pull out your beef to temper, pull out the breadcrumbs, because what's going to happen is by refrigerating it, it'll allow the breadcrumbs to fully hydrate and absorb the olive oil. All the flavors will have a chance to kind of come together beautifully. But they'll need to kind of come out and temper for that olive oil and the fat in the olive oil to kind of release so that we can
So it
spread it
solidifies
out.
while it's in the fridge.
Yeah.
Nice.
Will you check the temperature of that fillet in there, please? Thanks. All right, this feels pretty good. So when I grab it in my hands, I don't know what the best way. So I'll grab it, and then it comes together in like a cohesive mass.
One 122, chef.
All right, let's pull it out.
It's not at 125, but it'll get there, right?
Yep. So whenever we pull or whenever we're roasting a larger, you know, piece of meat like this, there's something that's going to happen where it's called a carryover period where once we remove it from the heat that it was exposed to will continue to carry over the temperature and will raise up. And that's why it's really important to allow, you know, meats or roasts or turkeys or chickens to rest. And it'll do two things. It'll allow for the heat to fully disperse throughout the meat. And also too, it'll allow for all of those juices to kind of settle in. It's kind of like when we work out and our muscles are like really firm and tight after we work out and we feel just really tense. And then after we stretch and relax after our workout, our muscles feel better. So what we're doing is we're putting these proteins through a lot of stress during the cooking process, and we want to allow them to rest before we cut into them or eat them. It'll be more tender. The juices will have a chance to like get fully distributed throughout the entire piece of meat, and it'll taste a lot better. How are we doing on time?
I pulled the
Okay.
Brussels sprouts. Look good.
Okay. Perfect.
This might be a good time for me to step in. So I want to step back and when I moved to Arizona back in 2004, Chris had moved down here from the Bay Area. We reconnected. Right around that same time, my family had gotten to know Mimi Rogers and the very young One Step Beyond program. Chris and I actually did some volunteer cooking classes at the Rogers House. And in 2006, Mimi and I had been talking about starting a culinary program. And she was able to get a grant that allowed us to open our first commercial kitchen. So one of the unique things, and really what our goal was to create a program where we could not only teach life skills, but also have a path for a culinary career. One step beyond is a program that really wants to try and open the doors for what our members want to do in life. And so with cooking and so forth, not only being an important life skill, I always wanted to try and challenge what they could do to a commercial setting. And so a lot of us have seen wonderful programs where they're involved in the food business and the peripheral side, but we wanted to get them involved directly in the kitchen. So that means knife skills. And so in 2006, we embarked on the program. It has grown to 4 campuses in California, or in Arizona, and 2 in California. We have 4 commercial kitchens in each of the Arizona facilities, and hopefully we'll be opening 1 in California soon. So, but if you would go to our website, osbi.org, and if you just click on programs, you'll find the culinary program. Right now, we're offering some tremendous trays. Becca Mungroven, who's our head chef, has done amazing things. So check out our website and find out more. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. So I made a little bit of polenta prior to the class, and because the cooking process takes about 30 minutes, and what you're looking for is for the polenta, when you take a bite of it, to not seem crunchy or gritty at all. There will be a little bit of texture there, which is perfect, and that's what makes polenta great, is that there should be a little bit of texture there, but it should not seem like crunchy or gritty when you take a bite and feel it between your teeth. And you can make the polenta ahead of time, earlier in the day, but just don't add the cheese or the butter or any of those things. And it's going to seize back up when it cools down. And all I'm doing is adding a little bit of water to get it back to the consistency that I'm looking for. And once it's there, I'll show you before I add the butter and the cheese and all the things. But in the meantime, let me show you what the Brussels sprouts look like when they're perfectly roasted. I don't know if we can see, but just some really great caramelization on there. And when we eat them, they're not going to be crunchy. They're going to be nice and soft all the way through, but not mushy. All right, polenta's almost there. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and put the crust on here. So we're looking for the crust to be about a little less than a 1/4 inch thick.
It's beautiful.
And we want to be a little forceful when we're putting it on there. All right, almost there. Okay, so all these like little kind of extra bits down there, we'll just leave them on there. And then we'll put it back in the oven and we'll cook it for about another 10 minutes or so that the cheese and the breadcrumbs and all that kind of gently toast and turn golden brown. About 10 minutes, same temperature. All right, so our polenta is almost there. Negroni break. Yeah.
I just want to add, since I'm a first-time Negroni enjoyer, or what would you call me?
I mean, I don't know. Are you
A
considered a
virgin
connoisseur now?
Negroni consumer. It gets actually better the longer it sits in the glass. It really does. The last couple sips have been just beautiful. I think maybe the orange peel comes out, so,
Yeah.
but it's delicious.
Okay. So just a touch more water and then we're going to be golden. All right, I'm going to bring this up close so we can show them the kind of the consistency of the polenta. So I don't know if you can see, it's not watery, but it's not tight. And when I lift up my spoon and turn it off, it falls off pretty easily. I don't know if that's reading okay. Okay. So at this point, now is when we're going to add our cheese and our butter and all of that. And then once we add the cheese and the butter, we're going to turn off the heat, put a lid on it, and let it hang out and keep warm until we're ready to serve it. And then once everything's melted in there, it's really important for us to taste it and make sure that it's delicious. And if we need to add a little bit more salt, now's the time. I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of home cooks make is that they don't taste their food as they cook and as they go along. You know, one thing that I always try to teach my chefs is that, you know, how are they to know, you know, if something is cooked properly or tastes appropriate before they serve our guests if they haven't had a chance to taste it. And learning how to taste and learning how to make something taste delicious and develop your palate is something that doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot of practice and a lot of trial and error. And for young cooks, I always really implore the young cooks to get a second opinion. You know, ask their chef, like, hey, does this taste right? Does this taste good? So in a family setting or a group setting, get a second opinion and let's see, you know, what it tastes like. I think it needs a little salt.
A little bit. Yeah. The Camazola adds some salt.
Yep. And then a little bit more garlic too.
Chef's point about tasting is really important when you're adding dry cheeses and things. because dry cheeses add a strong salt level to your food. So
Okay, so the heat's off. That's going to hang out. This filet looks pretty righteous. We'll kind of do a little close up on the kind of the caramelization. It's good. So the cheese is melted. The breadcrumbs are delicious.
righteous is a culinary term.
Technical. Yeah, very technical. All right. We're going to let that rest. And I'm sorry that we're going over our time, I think, a little bit. Is everybody okay? You guys hanging in there? All right. While that's resting, let's kind of talk through real quickly the dessert a little bit. And then we'll circle back and plate the filet, and then we'll plate the pear dessert. So the dessert, what I love about this is just how simple it is and seasonally appropriate. It's not overly sweet. I don't have a big sweet tooth, so this is kind of veered a little bit towards my preference a little bit, but I think that you all will enjoy it. So the nut crumble, it's essentially like a very rustic, crunchy, nutty oatmeal or granola. I'm sorry. Jim, will you grab me a little mixing bowl from over there, please? Thank you so much.
This size, okay?
A little bit bigger.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks, bud. All right, for the crumble, we've got our traditional just rolled oats. We have some chopped up hazelnuts. Let me show you the texture that we're looking for here. Not super fine, but still a little bit of texture there. And these hazelnuts have been roasted until they're golden brown. I use the 300-degree oven for about 10 minutes or so until they're just golden brown on the exterior, and then cooled down and then chopped up.
Did they have the skins on them, Chef?
No, skins were removed.
Okay.
Hazelnuts, got our pecan, same size texture. Almonds are in there. We're gonna add our brown sugar. Our cinnamon. And then the nutmeg, you can use pre-ground nutmeg or
Looking for a plain.
yeah, that microplane. I'm sorry.
Where did that plane go? The plane. Zester.
No. Oh,
Got it.
all right. I'll use the far end that doesn't have any garlic. Whoopsies. All right, here we go. And then just a little bit of the nutmeg microplanes.
Crushed all over the meat or just on the top?
Just on the top. Yep, just on the top. Great question. Nutmeg, cinnamon, a little pinch of kosher salt, a little bit of olive oil, 2 tablespoons. And this will get mixed really well. I've got an oven set at, so the roasted pears are going to roast at a high heat, 450, same as the filet. But for this crumble, this is something that you want to do before you do the filet, because we want it at a low temperature. So we want the oven set to about 275. And once everything's combined here, we're going to spread it out onto a sheet pan or a Pyrex dish or whatever's oven safe that's going to be flat and it'll accommodate this. Dump it out. Spread it out into a single thin layer. And then it'll go in the low oven. For about 12 minutes. And the end result, I'll show you what it looks like here.
It's really delicious. So Chef, that olive oil actually helps protect a little bit from burning,
Yep.
right?
So everything's nice golden brown. It's not all clumped together. And delicious. And then the pears, very simple. We're going to peel them. So the recipe is a quarter cup of pecans, a quarter cup of hazelnuts, a quarter cup of almonds, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of rolled oats. Once they come out of the oven, I add a little bit of the poppy seeds, about a half teaspoon. And then before they go in the oven and everything's mixed up, it's a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg and a teaspoon of cinnamon, a pinch of salt, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And that all gets mixed up really well and then spread out onto a roasting pan and put in the oven. For the pears, we're just going to peel the pears.
Is there a better pear to use than?
You know, Bosc, Bartlett, D'Anjou, all those pears I think are good. A little bit firmer pears I think are better, just so they don't get kind of mushy.
So if they're soft like you want to buy them to eat them, they're probably not good for this dish.
No, they'll get a little mushy when we roast them, so they should be a little bit firm. And we're adding some sugar to the pears before they roast, which helps just with the sweetness and just the flavor of the pear. So once they're peeled, we're going to split them in half. And then I use a spoon and remove the kind of the pith or the seeds in the middle. And we can do a close up here, but just scoop out the center where that little seed pod is in the center of the pear. You kind of see, and I like to keep the stems on so it looks pretty. Oh, I'm sorry. Will you grab a sheet pan over there, please? Just a quarter, little guy. Thank you. All right, we add our brown sugar, just a touch of olive oil, and a little pinch of salt. And then we'll toss these really well so that the brown sugar has a chance to coat the pears. And olive oil kind of helps it kind of the brown sugar to kind of stick a little bit. And that little pinch of salt just really helps drive the flavor of the pears without them coming across salty whatsoever. And then when we're roasting the pears, we're going to roast them cut side down. And these will go in that 450-degree oven for standard and then 425 convection for about 12 minutes. And that time can vary a little bit depending upon how ripe your pears are.
Chris, a quick question from Carla. You put all those ingredients on the nuts before you bake them, or is that when you take them out?
All those ingredients get mixed together before they get baked. And then let me show you what these pears look like after they come out of the oven. So when they come out of the oven, they're this side down. They look a little burnt or caramelized around the edges, but that's okay because once you flip them over, they're just perfectly caramelized and delicious. I don't know if that reads well. Okay. All right, and then the last recipe we have is the vanilla mascarpone. So mascarpone is essentially, for lack of a better description, an Italian cream cheese. It's very neutral, very thick and creamy, probably not as creamy or not as thick as like a Philadelphia cream cheese, but along the same lines. And this is an integral component of tiramisu. So if you've had tiramisu, you've had mascarpone. All right, so we've got our mascarpone, got our powdered sugar.
Chef, how long do you cook the nuts, the granola?
The nuts, it's about 15 minutes.
15.
Yep. And then we have so the mascarpone's in there, the lemon juice, the powdered sugar, and the vanilla paste or vanilla extract. And then we're just going to mix this up really well with a spoon or a spatula. And then the end result is just this delicious, slightly sweetened vanilla mascarpone. And the lemon juice in there is not overwhelming at all. It's just a little bit to add some little bit of brightness and help kind of balance out the richness of the mascarpone, the vanilla, and the powdered sugar. All right, so let's go ahead and we're gonna cut the filet and plate it, and then we'll do the dessert after that, and then we'll open it up to questions. All right, so the filet, we're just gonna transfer it to our cutting board here. We've got our Brussels sprouts that are nice and hot. Our polenta's hot and ready to go. Thanks, partner. So the polenta, we're gonna spoon right in the middle. Plate. And then cut 2 slices of the filet. Perfect. So again, some of the crust falls off, and that's nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. We'll just set it right on top there. The Brussels sprouts, we're just gonna scatter some around, let them kind of fall naturally. I've got some arugula here. This isn't necessary, but it just adds a really beautiful little touch and also a great little flavor component. And then the aged balsamic. So this is an aceto balsamico, and this is from Italy. It's from the Tuscany region. If you don't have this, don't worry about it. But I love it. It just adds a little bit of acidity and a little bit of sweetness and really sets off the flavor of the filet. And that's probably about a teaspoon total. And I'll bring this up close so everybody can see it. I don't want it to slide off the plate too much, but yeah. There you go,
Fantastic.
partner. I'm going to plate the pear and then we'll be good to go.
Okay. So a real quick shout out to one of our participants who's cooking along at home.
Okay.
Michelle M.
Yep.
did an incredible job, and hers looks almost as good as yours.
Awesome. I can't
So,
wait to see the pictures.
Great job.
Thank you, Michelle M.
That means you're a great teacher. She's a great student.
Heck yeah. All right, let me wipe down real quick. Okay, so we've got our sweetened vanilla mascarpone. I've got a couple tablespoons here. And we're just gonna kind of dollop it in the middle of the plate and it's standing up. And then just, I'm gonna swoosh it a little bit around like that. And then I'm gonna place one of our pears right on top. These guys are a little small, so maybe I'll do two.
Chef, and that's the natural caramelization off the pan.
Yeah, that's just the natural caramelization. So there's just the natural sugars from the pears with the little bit of help from the brown sugar. They're not burnt. That's just like pure, like delicious, concentrated sweetness from the pears. And then we're just gonna sprinkle some of this delicious nut crumble over the top of the pears. Around. And then the same aged balsamic that has that little bit of sweetness and tiny bit of acidity really helps drive this dessert too. And we're just gonna do a tiny bit over and around. And that's our super delicious and rustic pear dessert. I don't know if you guys can see that. Good? All right.
So to say thank you is not enough.
No,
Great job.
No, thank
Really
you.
good stuff, right?
thank you.
A couple quick finalizations. Jim, come over here. Jim is our new board chair, coming to One Step Beyond in 2021. And your support, your guidance, your direction in One Step the last 15 years has been really, really cool to see. More events like tonight are on our website at osbi.org/events. We're going to do this again because number one, it smells really good in here right now. Number two, I think people enjoy it. I hope you know that we went quick because we were cognizant of your time. We went over a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And I was trying to be as respectful as possible of your time out there.
But the good news is
Yeah.
we're going to give all of you a pre-recorded version of this that you can look at your leisure.
Awesome.
And we'll make it available for people that didn't have a chance to come tonight.
Yep.
And they can buy it and support the organization a little bit further.
And what I would like to do is offer my email address so that people can contact me directly with any questions or any concerns or anything. And I would love to, provide myself as a resource to you.
We appreciate that. So tonight was a great night. We're going to end now with our new CEO, Madison Blanton, is going to give a final thank you and appreciation for tonight. And we appreciate you joining and enjoy
Thanks,
the evening.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hey everyone. Wow, that was really fun. I won't keep you long because I know you all want to eat, as will I. Look, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to eat this. But really quickly, I want to thank Chris. Thank you so much. He's the head honcho over at North, and he's also a board member for One Step Beyond. So thank you so much, Chris, for being here tonight and helping us support the wonderful culinary program at One Step Beyond. I also want to thank Jim Rio. You were a wonderful assistant this evening. Jim is the founder of our culinary program and also our current chair of One Step Beyond. Thank you to DJ behind the scenes. Thank you so much for filming tonight. And obviously, thank you to Jeff and the rest of the development team at One Step Beyond for putting this all together. It was super fun for me. I hope it was super fun for you. Oh, and how can I forget? Thank you to all of you. Thank you so much for being here and helping us raise some money for One Step Beyond culinary program. Our programs at One Step Beyond are doing well, even in this COVID atmosphere, but we need your support now than ever. So please get involved, learn more about One Step Beyond. You can text to give to this number right here. But you can also visit our website at www.osbi.org to learn more about our wonderful programs and our catering company that will fulfill all your catering needs. Okay, I will stop talking so we can all enjoy our food. Bon appetit, everyone. Thank you. Have a great night.